Stop scrolling immediately, because what we are about to explore isn't just another celebrity rumor. It is arguably the most elaborate, meticulously planned, and flawlessly executed disappearing act in the history of modern pop culture. And once you see the breadcrumbs left behind, you will never look at the events of June 25, 2009, the same way again. For over a decade, the official narrative has been that the King of Pop succumbed to the unbearable pressures of his comeback tour, a tragic victim of medical negligence. But what if I told you that the This Is It tour was never actually meant to happen, and instead served as the ultimate smokescreen for a man who had spent his entire life trapped in a gilded cage and finally found the master key to escape? To truly understand this theory, we have to rewind to the months leading up to the announcement, a time when Michael Jackson was drowning in hundreds of millions of dollars of debt, facing the absolute loss of his beloved ATV music catalog, and being pushed by AEG Live to perform a grueling 50-show residency that his 50-year-old body simply could not endure, creating a literal do-or-die scenario where the only way to save his legacy, protect his children's financial future, and finally achieve the anonymity he had craved since the Jackson 5 days was to become more valuable in death than he was in life. This is where the terrifying genius of the plan begins to unfold, starting with the bizarre and deeply unsettling numerology that weaves through his entire existence and seemingly culminates in his departure. Michael was obsessed with the number 7, a number that symbolizes completion and perfection in many esoteric traditions. And the anomalies surrounding this digit in his final timeline are mathematically staggering. He was the 7th child of the Jackson family. He was born in 1958, and if you add 19 plus 58, you get 77. He supposedly passed away on the 25th, and 2 plus 5 equals 7. He signed his final will on the 7th of July 2002, and his globally broadcast memorial service took place exactly 7 years later on the 7th of July 2009. But the rabbit hole goes so much deeper than just numbers, because we have to look at the physical inconsistencies of that fateful day, starting with the now infamous helicopter footage of his body being transported from UCLA Medical Center to the coroner's office, where eagle-eyed viewers and forensic video analysts have pointed out a distinct moment where the supposedly lifeless body appears to sit up as the helicopter crosses the Los Angeles skyline, a piece of footage that networks quickly pulled from syndication but remains a cornerstone of the escape theory. And then we arrive at the memorial service itself, an event watched by nearly 3 billion people worldwide, yet the most famous face on the planet was hidden inside a closed solid bronze gold-plated casket, which contradicts the Jackson family's historical tradition of open casket funerals, raising the chilling question of who or what was actually inside that box. Especially when you consider the bizarre presence of an unknown blonde woman sitting near the front row who bore a striking, almost prosthetic resemblance to Michael himself in disguise. But the absolute zenith of this theory, the moment that made even the most hardened skeptics pause, occurred just weeks later on Larry King Live during an interview with Dave. Dave, a burn survivor whom Michael had famously befriended and financially supported in the 1980s. When Dave appeared on the screen, the internet completely exploded because the man speaking did not sound like the Dave from previous interviews, but instead spoke with the exact pitch, cadence, and breathy articulation of Michael Jackson, complete with Michael's signature mannerisms, the downward gaze, and the distinctive way he nervously shifted his shoulders, leading thousands of vocal experts and body language analysts to conclude that Michael was sitting right there on national television, hiding in plain sight behind heavy prosthetics, attending his own media aftermath just like he did in the legendary music video for Liberian Girl, where he secretly directed the entire cast from behind a camera before revealing himself at the end. The psychological profile of Michael Jackson perfectly aligns with this mastermind narrative. This was a man who created the illusions of smooth criminal and thriller, a man who loved magic, disguises, and theatrical misdirection, and a man who famously stated in multiple private interviews that he just wanted to walk down a street without being mobbed. An impossible dream for the King of Pop, but a very real possibility for a man who no longer officially exists. Let's not forget the sheer financial brilliance of the aftermath. Within 1 year of his reported passing, Michael's estate went from being nearly $500 million in the red to generating over $1 billion in pure profit, securing his children's future, clearing his debts, and cementing his catalog as the most valuable asset in music history. An economic turnaround so flawless that corporate strategists study it, and it was all triggered by the tragedy of his sudden absence. Furthermore, the behavior of his personal physician, Dr. Conrad Murray, has always baffled legal experts, as his actions on that day administering heavy hospital-grade anesthetics in a residential bedroom, leaving the room, delaying the 911 call, and performing CPR on a soft bed instead of a hard floor seem less like the actions of a highly paid competent cardiologist and more like the calculated steps of a fall guy, someone compensated to play a specific role in a grander narrative, creating enough reasonable doubt and chaos to allow the ultimate asset to be moved out the back door, while the world's media was distracted by the front gates of the Holmby Hills mansion. When you compile the evidence, the impossible stamina required for the London shows, the sudden clearing of his financial ruin, the closed casket, the numerological synchronicities, the Dave interview, the history of elaborate disguises, and his desperate, lifelong yearning for a normal life, the theory that Michael Jackson orchestrated his own demise ceases to be a crazy internet rumor and transforms into a chillingly plausible masterpiece of self-preservation, suggesting that somewhere in the world right now, far away from the flashing cameras and the grueling demands of the industry, the greatest entertainer who ever lived is finally enjoying the one thing his money and fame could never buy him: peace.